James Kaufman, World News Report today. Who is above the law when the law breaks the law? We all knew what had occurred, and there was nothing we could do about it. They completely scared everyone into silence, except for me and a handful of others. It's much easier to say once you have the proof. Breaking, the Georgia Board of Elections just dropped this bombshell revealing that hundreds of thousands of ballots in Georgia, the 2020 presidential election, were counted twice. And it was not by human error, but by intentional human intervention, which was in fact massive voter fraud that stole the election from the actual winner of Georgia, President Donald J. Trump. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, President Trump, and countless others were criminally charged, civilly sued, and in some cases bankrupted for no other crime than having the courage to come forward and expose this massive fraud to the American people. Sidney Powell sold out within a week. Rudy Giuliani needs to be made whole. They bankrupted him. The whole thing was a sham. Everything associated with Georgia is a sham. All of these people have been completely and totally vindicated. They were right, and so were all of us. The head of the Georgia Board of Elections now says Georgia owes President Donald J. Trump an apology. An apology? You need to be put under the jail. It's official, guys, and the evidence is all out after 5 long, painful years. The 2020 election was stolen from all of us. President Trump was the lawful winner of the state of Georgia. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Governor Brian Kemp, and other top Georgia election officials were paid off to look the other way and knowingly certified this fraudulent election. So when do the arrests start? If we don't see arrests of these top officials, then nothing has changed and nothing will change. Ruby Freeman should have to pay Rudy Giuliani back reparations plus every single penny that she got off of him based on a big lie and false pretense. And her, Raffensperger, Kemp, and every single one of their fellow election riggers must be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This was the political crime of the century, and I'm sure it happened in other states as well, like Arizona. They should never be allowed to show their faces in public again without being shouted down by we the people for stealing our vote and our president from us. Resign now, you rhino traitors. They should actually hang for this. When President Trump was talking about the enemy from within, well, you thought he was talking about Muslims. You better look in your own backyard. He was talking about the leaders of these blue states. He was talking about people exactly like these people.
Owes President Donald J. Trump an apology. President Trump has been indicted by Fulton County. May I remind you that Fulton County has been found to be in violation of election law, not once for the hand audit, but twice for the machine count. And now we can prove that they had intentional human intervention, which is the predicate for election fraud. You all know our case is SEB 2023, thank you, -25. In that case, you know that it involved 17,852 votes counted without ballot images. You also know that for the first machine count, 20,713 ballots were counted with what I like to call receipts. I guess the fancy word is tabulator tapes. And I always like to say you can't get out of Walmart these days without showing your receipt, but for some reason you can count 20,000 votes without a receipt. The last part of this complaint perhaps is the most concerning because we've uncovered some recent information that makes it so. In addition to proving that 3,930 ballots were scanned and counted. I want to say that again, and counted. And I sure hope that Miss Charlene McGowan is listening. Miss McGowan, on May 7th, you and your team got up before the board and said, yeah, I think Mr. Rossi's right. These ballots were scanned twice, but we're not sure if they were counted twice. That is a lie. And we know that because the data that shows they're counted twice is on the cast vote records, and that is available to the Secretary of State. Other experts know that those ballots were counted twice. Media sources know. I saw Mr. Nisi from the AJC just walk up here, and not to get him in trouble, but he recently reported he thinks they were counted twice also. And that's from the AJC. Sorry, Mark, if I'm going too far, just say, stop, Joe, you're going to get me in trouble. Okay, so they were counted twice for the second machine count. We know with certainty that this duplication of ballots was not, I want to repeat, was not an administrative error. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how we know that shortly. Rather, the duplication process was due to intentional human intervention. And I'm not a lawyer, but when I ran this by a few lawyers, they told me this is the phrase. Intentional human intervention is the predicate for election, I'm going to use the F word, fraud. Okay, you're going to hear me say that several times. The heart of this presentation. I said that the ballots were tabulated twice, counted twice, and it was not done accidentally. This slide shows that a ballot on the right over here was scanned and counted, creates a file. Some of the experts in the room, like Garland, know this, but if it's scanned again, it creates another file, which means it is counted twice. So how did this happen? This is a very complicated slide that has taken months for technical experts to develop and explain. It's also very difficult to explain still. But it basically shows that ballots were scanned on one day, and then they were randomly picked, these batches of ballots, and created new batches and scanned a second day on a different tabulator. I'm going to skip that part. All right, I'm going to close with how I started this little talk here. I'm going to read it one more time if you don't mind. It says, in addition to proving that 3,930 ballots were scanned and counted 2 times for the second machine count, which was the certified count, we now know with certainty that this duplication of ballots was not a mere administrative error. Rather, the duplication process was due to intentional human intervention. And I said, the lawyers tell me that that is the predicate for election fraud. And now, in closing, I remind you about Mr. Raffensperger's ex-post of August 1st. If you have the data, bring it to him. Mr. Secretary, we're bringing the data to you, and we are counting on you to do the right thing and investigate independently is critical, SEB 2023-25.
How can you possibly expect the crook that ran the operation to be investigating himself? It's the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. Y'all elected him, get him out of office, get him put in jail with Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade, and all of these people involved in this lawfare against Republicans that argued that they thought there might be some hanky-panky going on over in Georgia, which now all of a sudden we all know there was. Trump was indicted for pressuring Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to investigate election integrity in his state. 5 years later, Georgia admits they illegally certified 315,000 ballots in the 2020 election, handing Biden a win by 11,779 votes. This is beyond criminal, the biggest political crime in history by far. It's time to prosecute the prosecutors. We're talking about actual jail time, if not more severe consequences. If this doesn't happen, America will never trust the government again, as in our vote doesn't count. And that includes you, President Trump, period. Please share our video, please subscribe, and always remember, anything's possible in Bizarro World.